This is MMD coming at you with tips for super golf on Roblox. Often I'm asked, how am I so good at so many different maps? And the answer to that is really two parts. Part one is a process for figuring out hole strategies. And what I mean by that is the steps I take for figuring out the hole strategies. And the second part is targeting consistency. And what I mean by that is I have a philosophy that if I get a 2 on every hole on an 18-hole course, I'm going to get 36, which is a great score. So when I start figuring out strategies, that's my target. Can I get a 2 on this, right? And if I take that shot and I figure out a 2 and I think, oh, I got a hole-in-one shot here, then I'll try that. And if I get the hole-in-one, great. It makes up for another hole where I wasn't able to get it in 2, right? Maybe I get it in 3 or get it in 4. But that's kind of my guiding principle. And then also on top of consistency is if I have a hole-in-one shot that I get, say, 50% of the time, if I miss that hole-in-one attempt and it leaves me near the hole where I can get it again in the second shot, boom, I still hit my 2 target. So that's great. Those are the best hole-in-one shots, right? But if I have a hole-in-one shot that puts me out of bounds at 50%, that's not something I want, because now my consistency is blown, right? And so I'll just stick to my absolute hole-in-2 shot over that 50% hole-in-one shot. And then lastly on that is if I can find a hole-in-one shot that I get, say, 75% of the time. Now that's something I'm going to think about, because I know at 75%, I can probably get it in 2 shots, which is my target. So that's kind of the philosophy I use for consistency. So let's go ahead and apply those parts to actually finding your strategies, right? And so the first thing I'll say is, in order to do any of the stuff I'm about to talk about, you need to know your center line, right, of your screen. And there's various ways to do it. I only play on the phone. I've never played Super Golf on the computer. So on the phone, when Super Golf first came out, I used the chat box, because the right side of the chat box was exactly aligned on the center line of the screen. So that was great. I had something I could use. That changed. Roblox changed the chat box. And so I had to come up with something else. And another way I came out was if I took a really thin rubber band, figured out my center line, I could just wrap my phone with the rubber band and I know my center line. And I can use that for aiming, right? On the computer, I guess you could use, maybe there's some overlay apps that put a grid line directly down the center of the screen, right? And maybe there's something like that for the phones too, I don't know. So that's a way you could find your center line for targeting. The second step is setting up your environment. And the way you do that is you come in here to the environment, the admin panel, and I say set your spawn point to center. And the reason you want to do that is if you can figure out your strategy for your center spawn, then it's easy to figure out, okay, if it spawns left or right, how do I adjust? And you can work that out as well, but I'll explain how you can figure that out. And then you'll come down here. You want to replay holes, because you don't want to keep going forward and coming back. You just let it replay the holes you figured out. You don't need to see the scoreboard, so turn that off. And then the last thing is set your max strokes above par to the maximum, so you don't have to worry about the hole ending before you're ready for it. And that's it. And then what you do is we go in here and we start figuring out our strategy. First thing I'll do when I get to holes, I just want to see what happens when I go 50 for it. I want to see how the line goes, right? What it does off that wall. I'll go down here, see how it bounces off. Okay, don't like that. That's not going to be useful. Come up here on the wall. Okay. But there did seem to be a point down here, kind of near where you start off, where it goes down the line, right? So now I'll go up to 100 just to kind of test this out a little further and see where it goes. And look at this. We're right near the hole. That's great. I already know I've got my hole-in-2 strategy lined up. So I'll do a little bit more just to see if there's anything better. I'll test this wall. Right? And so it looks like I have a couple options, right? Let's go back. Come down here. Let's test, I don't know, down here. Let's see where we go. Ooh, that was really interesting. Okay. And so now I've got a couple options. I take one of the ones that I thought looked best, and I'll slow it down a little bit and see what happens here. Right? And so look at that. I got right near the hole there, right? And I'm a little bit off. So you want to be careful where you're aiming. So right now, I got something I kind of like, I'm going to look at where I'm aiming at this point. And it got that center line, right? And so here is the real key point. The further off you can find a target from where you are in the game, the better that target's going to be. And there's a reason for that. It's based off of geometry. So if you have like say you're targeting the wall, like you're looking at where you're aiming against that wall. If you vary left or right, the angle that you're going to come into that wall changes a lot. But if you pick a target that you're aiming really far away, just based off geometric principles, the angle is going to change much less. It's going to change, the further off you go towards infinity, it's going to almost change not at all. So the further off target you can get, the better. So the best target I see here is I see that little orange patch way out in the distance there behind this tree. So I'm going to use that as my target point, okay? And I'm going to move over just a little bit to the left from where we went last time. Let's see what happens here. Okay, so that pushed me off further away from the hole. So now I'm going to come back and I'm going to go a little bit to the right of that. Maybe just the right center of that. What happens? Look at that. It goes right in. And so that kind of just showed you the principles that we're going to be using, or that you'll be using for all the holes going forward, right? So I talked about, I'm going to center spawn. But if I turn off the center spawn and I go to slightly random, let's go to slightly random. Oops, not random, but slightly random. All right, now I think you have to kind of go away from the hole and back to get it to actually go into effect. So now we're here. Now I'm not going to be necessarily center. It looks like I'm a little bit off to the left. So I think because I know that when we tested earlier, when I went to the left, I ended up left of the hole. When I went to the right, I ended up more to the right. Since I'm over to the left here, I'm going to go with the spawn and aim a little bit left. And this is going to tell me, and I remember my speed was something like 64. So let's test it. Now again, it's just a little bit. I'm changing my aim point just slightly. All right, so let's see what happens here. All right, you see it coming at more, go to the right. So let's go. This one probably pretty much the same. Like I said, if you get a good aim point, you're not gonna have to change it. So let's see if we can make this consistent. It looks like we're in pretty much the same spot, so we'll try it again. And, oh, forgot to set the speed. That's okay. Let's set the speed. You notice I also have decimals set here. Decimals are really important. All right, so it looks like it's an opposite adjust. If you're to the left, you adjust to the right. Let's see. So this one's a little bit more to the right. So let's go adjust to the left a little bit. And once you have this information down, you're pretty solid to go. Let's go 64.2 because it seems to be just the right speed. Oh, no, let's adjust back. So we're to right. So it looks like it is adjust with right. It adjusts with the spawn. So let's test this out. But this is how I do it. So it's got a number of walls, so it's hard to tell where to go. So it's a width adjusting. So this one's center, so I'm going to adjust. I'm going to aim a little bit to the right of that spot. And let's see if we can get this to happen every time. Okay, we're center again, so I'm going to go a little bit right on that aim point. There you go. Now we're left, so I'm going to come a little bit more center of that because I'm adjusting slightly with the spawn. Slight. And there you go. So I came up with my strategy, and those are the steps that I use for every hole, and that's the philosophy I use for every hole. Anyway, I hope this helps you figure out your strategies. You can ping me if you have any questions, and hope we get more players playing Super Golf again. All right, take care. MMD out.